Okay, this podcast takes you through a model plan to a question about the White Rose Group and student opposition to the Nazi regime. I produced this by fairly common request. Quite a lot of students have seen this in the list of past essay questions. It came up in June 2010. And it's not an area that's very well covered in the textbook, to be quite honest, quite a difficult one to answer. So here we have an answer. So if it comes up this year, you'll be well set as long as you learn this particular plan. So let's go through it. The question is, as you can see at the top there, explain how students and the White Rose Group opposed the Nazi government. And that came up in June 2010. It is a 9-mark question, which would be about 13 minutes. So writing for 13 minutes, as always, it would need to be a paragraphed response. So a quick look at the overview of the answer. As you can see, this would be a 7-paragraph answer. There'd be a brief introduction and conclusion, and then there would be 5 main paragraphs in the middle. Fairly brief paragraphs. You could quite easily write this answer in 13 minutes. I would strongly urge you have a go at doing that and time yourself after you have listened to this podcast. So let's go through it paragraph by paragraph. First point, the introduction. Explain how during World War II some university students started printing and distributing leaflets which criticised the policies of the Nazi regime. The most famous student resistance group was the White Rose Group, that was captured, and the leaders were executed by the Gestapo in 1943. Now, as you can see with that introduction, it's just simply two sentences, sets the question up. As always, put it into context. Key thing here to understand is that the student and White Rose Group opposition was very much during World War II. So you've just briefly introduced it, then you just get straight into the main answer. So the main answer, as you can see, paragraphs 2 to 6. As always, the key thing is to do the topic sentences. If all you do, and I'll just highlight that there, if all you do is make those points that I've highlighted, those 5 points, then you will do really well. Some people do not write as fast as others, so don't get too stressed about the supporting information. The supporting information is there for you to develop those points with precise detail. Try to get at least one of the pieces of supporting information into your paragraph, but don't feel obliged to get all of that information into every single paragraph. Some people just simply do not write fast enough. That's fine. The key thing is the main points. Okay, so your first proper paragraph, the main point you want to make is explain who the White Rose Group were and what motivated them. So what I've done here is I've given you the names. I mean, famously, I think most people would be able to say the brother and sister Hans and Sophie Scholl, but I've also given you the names of the other members of the group: Willy Graf, Schmorell, Probst. They were the other members. They were all medical students at the University of Munich, and they went behind the fighting lines at the Eastern Front, where they witnessed the killings of Jews. And when they went back to Germany to the university, they were determined. They felt they had to do something about it. So that's what you're putting across in paragraph 2. You then move into paragraph 3. And what you're doing here with 3, 4, 5 and 6, as the question requires, is you're very much focusing on what were the methods. Okay, so just a brief point about each of the methods. The first method that you want to emphasise is their resistance was passive. Okay, it was not violence. It wasn't like the Edelweiss pirates who did sabotage and things like that, went around attacking, doing damage to the cause. They simply spread the word of what they believed in, and they did that in particular by printing leaflets. So it was very much peaceful protest, refusing to cooperate with the regime, and so again develop that. So the leaflets were called leaflets of the resistance. They were spread in various ways. Early on they were mailed, they used the addresses in the phone book, and they were mailed to people in the city of Munich. Later on they were distributed by hand. By early 1943 that was very much the norm, and in total 6 different leaflets were produced. Then move on to the next paragraph, paragraph 4, sticking with the theme of method, so keep using that word, another method. They made their leaflets very convincing because they were university students, they were very educated. So they argued it was a moral duty to oppose. How do you back that up? They quoted great German philosophers, thinkers. If you really impress an examiner, you can give the names of a couple of them in your answer. And they also made reference to Christian teachings as a way of appealing to many church-going Germans. They used the slogan, "Do not forget that every nation deserves the government that it endures." So it's basically making the point, we put the Nazis there, we must carry the responsibility. So it's appealing to people's moral duty to oppose if they disagreed with the rumours that they were hearing about what was happening in the occupied East. You then move on to paragraph 5, and the key point you want to make here is another method which they use graffiti as a campaign. So again, just give an example. They painted slogans such as freedom and down with Hitler on walls of buildings throughout the University of Munich. So that would be a very brief paragraph, but nevertheless it would score marks because the question is saying what were the methods that they used. Okay, how did they oppose? That's what the question is saying. And then sticking to the same theme, again a different point about method. They targeted the Allies, and the point you want to make here is if the Allies heard what they were doing, they were hoping that the Allies would assist them in spreading the message. And that is exactly what happened. The 6th leaflet, they managed to get it out of Germany, and the British picked it up, and they mass-produced it, and they dropped it from aeroplanes over Germany to try and persuade Germans to oppose the regime. On the whole, not successful. The White Rose Group, in the end, were not successful on that level. Most Germans were too fearful of the consequences if they were seen reading the leaflets. You then move into your conclusion and sum up the various methods, because that's what the question is. So highlight the fact you've identified several methods: leaflets, using the mail and telephone book, hand distribution, quoting respected teachings and philosophers, the use of graffiti. And then pull it together by explaining that the leaders of the White Rose Group, if you can learn the date, that's always good, precise detail, were spotted distributing leaflets. They were arrested by, again, the detail is important, the Gestapo, and the leaders, including the brother and sister Hans and Sophie Scholl, were beheaded. And although on one level they failed, because most Germans continued to support the Nazi regime to the end because they were afraid to resist, the White Rose Group are important because they were martyrs to the cause. They opposed it for moral reasons and to give a message to future generations, including us today, that there were decent Germans and not all Germans were supporters of the Nazis. Now, the second page, and I will upload that plan to Frog. On the second page, I've just copied for you a section from Britannica Learn, which pretty much contains most of the information that I've just taken you through there. So read that. I've highlighted the keywords. All of those keywords went into the plan, and that pretty much wraps that one up. You should be able to write a good answer to that particular question. Hope that was helpful to you.